to the Out of Endicott podcast. We got a camera now. That little red thing right there, that's just our mic covered up. We didn't have a proper, cover for it, just to dampen the sound a little bit. But yeah, we finally got a camera, so we're gonna do a lot more, video projects, behind the scenes bullshit, making all that type of stuff, and hopefully go around to local businesses and stuff like that too. Definitely want to do that. But so let's start. So I saw the Truman Show, the one with the movie with Jim Carrey, where he's essentially in a simulation, but it's created by somebody else. There's like an author, um, or a what is he? Do they give a name for him? He's pretty much God in the movie.
Yes, that's the role essentially.
But he's this guy who's a script writer, screenplayer, producer, whatever you want to call it, and he's in charge of this show that Jim Carrey's character is a part of, Truman, and everybody has watched it. Everybody, it's like Friends. Everybody knows everything about it, and the only one not clued in is Jim Carrey and his character, Truman. And I thought the movie had a lot of potential, especially at the start. I didn't really know much about it going in, but I knew it was like a simulation type deal,
mm-hmm.
and I wasn't really sure what to expect. But so going in, I first thought, before I knew too much about it, I thought these people were like bots. I didn't know they were like actors in the movie. So pretty much, if you haven't seen the movie, how it works is, there's everyday people that watch this show, and some of them also happen to be actors that take place, that, they take the place of a character in Truman's life, and they have to pretty much fulfill that role 24/7 whenever Truman's around them. So like high school friends, you know what I mean? There's the pizza delivery guy or food delivery guy that ends up being like his quote unquote friend. Mm-hmm. But they're all in on it, and he ends up getting a love interest, and she ends up breaking the rules and pretty much telling him it's all a simulation, and that starts fucking with his head. So he starts trying to break out of it. I don't think he ever tries to kill himself though, right? I don't think he ever goes.
It's been a while since I've seen it, but no, I don't.
I think he just tries to like go farther than the bounds of the movie allow. Mm-hmm. So like in his mind, all right, I'm being recorded. This is all everyone. It's like an inside job. Everyone's in on it. I should try to go as far as possible. So think of it as like, you live in New York, but everywhere outside of New York is great. There's a fly. That's awesome. God damn it. But think about it.
It'll be better next time.
Think about it as everywhere except for New York is fake. But you want to try to go to PA to prove that New York is, in a sense, like also real. Because that's all he knows. He doesn't know anything beyond that. So he wants to kind of find out what the outside world is like. And even on the way out, people are telling him like, you don't want to go out there. It's just like you have it in there, but yours is controlled because you can have happiness. We've given you a proper amount of everything. And that's what the godlike producer character is. He's in his head saying this to him as he's trying to escape. And I think doesn't he end up like walking out and meeting the girl? But I don't really remember how it ends. But pretty much the whole thing is like, what if this was all a simulation, a ruse, and like everyone's in on it except you? Yeah, that's why everything does kind of revolve around you, because it literally, like, if that were the case, it literally would.
Exactly.
There's a producer scripting out every action, and in this case, they followed Truman when he was born. That's when they started. That's when they started recording him, and everything is. I'm pretty sure what tipped him off too was like the girl told him, but he didn't really put it together. He saw his father that was supposedly dead for the past couple of years, right? Past 20 years or something. Mm-hmm. But he saw him play somebody else, or he ran into him in the real world.
Yeah, it was like one of those.
And he's like, "Wait a minute, you're my father. You're just playing you're just a random dude walking on the street." And he tried to find him, but everyone keeps smoring him, almost like the Secret Service, like trying to get between the president and everybody else, like getting in front of him, body shielding him, all that.
It's a great movie, man. everybody has their different preferences, but I definitely, if you've never seen it before, check it out because just for the concepts that it plays with, even if you don't like the particulars in the movie, the concept is brilliant. So
I think it's a really good movie. I kind of wish it went in a different direction, a more serious direction. I think they tried to do a little too much of the like producer versus Truman
yeah,
type deal, where like I wish they would have just explored him breaking the bounds and then learned like
finding
almost
it out on his
almost
own.
dealing with it because he almost didn't deal with it at all. At the end, he kind of put a smile on his face and said, "I'm Truman. This is who I am. This is who you developed me to be. Like I'm gonna continue being Truman." And it never.
Well, and it's one of those things too where it's
It
like
never,
it kind of brings that philosophical question of like, would you rather live a life where ignorance is bliss? That's your life, everything's staged. You're unaware
Yeah.
of it, but like you have the appropriate amounts of happiness, if you will,
Yep.
as long as you're not aware of that. Versus being aware of the reality of the world and having to deal with that and having less happiness overall. Uh, so I think that's a really interesting concept. But yeah.
What'd you think about it? Did you like it?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, I like you said. I mean, I think there's definitely things that they could have done differently. I don't know if it was like the exact perfect direction that they went with the idea, but I mean, as far as like,
I think a lot of it too with me was like I watched it so late. Like watching it now, it's like 20 years
yeah,
past. It's not really.
yeah, and I feel like Jim Carrey did a really good job for that. But at the same time, it's one of those things where it could have been done like in a slightly more, I don't know, serious fashion with like a I don't know, imagine like a Leonardo DiCaprio in that sort of role.
Yeah.
Playing with that sort of concept. I feel like it could have been more
Yeah.
piercing.
I wonder. That's a movie that like. They play with the idea of simulations and reality a lot now. But that would be a cool movie to redo.
Yeah.
Way, just like a remake of that, like the Truman. Just call it even. The
Yeah,
Truman
but just
Show.
like a darker version. I feel like that would
Yep.
be a pretty good extension there.
So AEW had a show yesterday, and I don't really want to talk too much about the show because it's a pretty niche thing. But they do have their TV deal coming up in the fall on TNT. Super excited for that. Wrestling's in a rut right now. But yesterday they had a show in Jacksonville, and Tony Khan, the owner of AEW, also the Jags owner, um, they put together a show for gun violence. And after it, they mentioned that he was just mentioning all these disasters and all these things that happen, all these tragedies, and he was mentioning like the Madden shooting last year. He said it pretty much happened right across the street, and
yeah, in Florida,
I think I'm not exactly sure how much. I think it was something like six figures though, deep six figures that they donated towards gun violence yesterday. So
props to them for that.
yeah, I mean they did the show. It wasn't for profit. They had the arena looked amazing. It was just one of the most unique venue setups ever. I mean that I can remember in like wrestling history. But that was a big part of it. You know what I mean? Because typically they don't want to get as many seats as possible. But they kind of did it. It reminded me of if you've seen Star Wars. You know how like they have the setup and like when Palpatine's talking to everybody and they have the fucking surrounding area and everyone's in their own floating like pods. That's kind of like how the stadium was set up. That just kind of gave that vibe where it was just like a big dome.
Yeah,
and it was just like a really cool setup. But yeah, props to AEW for doing stuff like that.
Yeah. That's especially if it hits home for like the con owner of like the Jags and whatnot. Mm-hmm. I can imagine, especially with that Madden tournament, or I mean, there's been a lot of shootings like that have happened in Florida in particular. So yeah, definitely props to them for that.
Yep, and that's crazy. And the show itself was really good. They're hitting their stride. There's still little things that aren't perfect, but they're gonna get there. It's coming together. It's even for people who don't watch wrestling. I think that's gonna be something that I don't know if you're going to tune into it permanently, but you're going to be seeing it featured definitely like in the coming years. So then we had the fights yesterday, and I didn't really watch all the fights because we had the AEW show, so I was watching that. But Uriah Faber came back after a few year layoff, and I mean he got the job done versus Ricky Simone, and he was a ranked guy, not necessarily in line for a title shot, but close enough where you know what I mean. Faber's kind of making a splash coming back at this time, and he's hitting it perfectly. He's not really. I don't think he's doing it because he has it's not that he doesn't have the itch to fight, but it's just perfect timing. Cruz is still kind of hurt, still coming back into his own. You know what I mean? Like not fully, you know, doesn't have his legs under him.
Yeah.
Figuratively and literally. Um, Dillashaw just popped. He's gone for a little bit. Uh,
That's a shame.
and then you have Cody Garbrandt just lost a few in a row.
He hasn't looked very well since that. Honestly, since that Cruz.
Yeah, and he can. He's young still. He can come back, but as far as he's not taking a spot from Faber now. Where before, like they wouldn't fight each other if he was champ. And
that slot has been freed.
There was no reason to be a number one contender, and now, shit, man. I mean, Faber.
It's great to see him back, man.
I'm not saying he can win if he fought Cejudo, but he called Cejudo out, and if there's somebody to fast track to a title shot, historically it's been Uriah Faber. Just
why not? I feel like that's a good marketing thing for them.
He dispatched him in just under a minute. It was only like 40 something seconds in.
Caught him real nice with a right hand. I believe.
And it might have been maybe a little early stoppage, but I don't even think so. I don't think that was too early.
No, I don't think it was.
Now in the main event we had Jermaine Durandamy versus Aspen Ladd, and that might have been a little soon. But even then, someone said on Reddit, and I think this put it perfectly. This happened opening minute, opening seconds in the fight, and again I was flipping between this and AEW, so I just caught the highlights. But Randomly when she put Ladd out, a big reason I think the ref, I'm pretty sure it was Herb Dean, but the reason Dean stopped it was because Ladd barely made weight. Like, she did make weight, but she made weight like shaking on the scale. She looked like a Holocaust victim. She didn't look healthy at all. Her eyes were sunken in. It looked like she was punched in the face before she even went in the cage. She had big circles under her eyes, and it's not right. People keep essentially waiting for a fighter to die before they change the weight cutting rules, because the way it works is you cut a bunch of weight the day before the fight, and you weigh in, and some of these people drop 20, 30 pounds. Women maybe a little less, but like body percentage wise, equally is crazy.
Yeah.
And it's just like someone's really gonna die. And I mean, people have died, but they've attributed it to like heart attacks or something like that.
Something else, like a pre-existing
condition. They haven't. But like when something's directly attributed to weight cutting, or something happens on weigh-in day or weigh-in morning,
we're gonna have a big problem.
That's when it's
especially when there starts to be exposés on the fact that this has been the way that they've been doing it, and they had red flags and warning signs and reason to change their policy. I think it would only behoove them to get out in front of it rather than wait until after the fact.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't really know what the solution is. I know ONE FC has a weight cutting program where, I'm pretty sure it's ONE FC, but like they make people weigh in the same day, or I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the way it works. And you have to be within a certain percent of your weight the whole time, like from the time you get there, like 2.5 weeks out or something, or a month out.
At least it sounds like they have a system.
Yeah.
At least in the event that somebody does get really sick or die or whatever,
and they have
plausible deniability.
And they have their own problems where what's worse, weight cutting or PEDs?
Correct.
But
I mean, there's no reason that the UFC can't try to form like that perfect organization that strives towards both of those ends, right?
And I mean, so a week out of the John Jones thing. Let's just get back to that just real quick before we move on from MMA. How do you think that victory holds up? What do you think about it now that it's a week out?
A week out from it, I feel like John got lucky, to be honest with you, to a certain extent. And I know that sounds that's an unpopular take, if you will, especially, the area that we're from. Everybody loves John. I love John. I want him to succeed and, do everything he can to, make as much as possible and become the GOAT, solidify that. But when it comes down to his performance against Santos, I genuinely feel like Santos, it was such a toss-up fight, but I still, my immediate reaction after the fight was that he won. Rewatching it, it was very close, kind of a toss-up, but I do genuinely feel, because what was the after fight report for him injury-wise? Wasn't it like a torn ACL, torn MCL, torn PCL?
4 different things
torn. Meniscus, 4 different things torn,
and maybe one partial tear.
And he still fought, well under those conditions. So if you take all those injuries away and you add Because even throughout the 4th, 5th round, he showed moments of explosive, you know, bursts. And if he had everything behind him, I feel like those explosions would have been heavier, harder to stop for John. And John just, he did fight the smart fight, but there were times where, like, even where you would assume, like I mentioned, I think the last time we talked about this, that a fighter would smell blood in the water. He only got kind of like aggressive in that 3rd, 4th round, So that's my take on it.
And someone, I'm not sure who it was, but someone commented on it and said, commented about the fight and said, I'd be interested in a rematch, but next time John will probably just take him down. He wouldn't have the game plan to strike him.
And that very well could be the
Probably
case,
true.
Because John didn't. That's one thing. John didn't really shoot for a takedown the entire fight, and I think that's one thing that John talked about after the fight, that he wanted to beat this guy on his own terms, essentially, and he's proud of himself for doing that, which I understand. But again, put that guy without a torn ACL, MCL, PCL, we might be having a completely different discussion. Yeah. So.
Yep. I mean, so I'm hoping they do the Cormier thing at 205. I mean, legacy-wise, Cormier has to do the Stipe fight first. We've already mentioned that. But I also do want to see Johnny Walker, though, take a crack at Jones. I do,
that would be a very interesting fight.
Maybe Walker needs another fight before he gets that shot.
Probably.
Especially after, sitting...
But it might be actually a good, kind of placeholder in between, a Jones and, DC, because DC's got to go through Stipe, like we talked about.
It would, but
might be the next...
I don't see him fighting before December.
Yeah.
And if he's going to fight...
Yeah, because John's leg was pretty, or his thigh was pretty... I don't know about his after-injury report.
And then with Cormier and his recovery, if that fight's going to come together, they might even wait till, February, March, you know what I mean? Just to...
Yeah. Give both of them enough time.
Yeah. So I mean,
and they both are so high level.
And if it's gonna happen, it has to happen now. It can't wait another 2-3 years because Cormier is gonna be done. He's gonna be.
Yeah, he's definitely got a ceiling as far as how many more fights he has.
And else, Stipe might play spoiler. That would be crazy.
That would be crazy.
But,
and I love Stipe too, so I wouldn't even be mad about it.
But I mean, Chael Sonnen said this. It's a lot more intriguing now for John Jones than it was before, because before. It didn't look like any fight was going to be a close fight except the Cormier fight. And now it looks like he's vulnerable, so you have to watch because he could lose any of these times.
Exactly. And it could be also a case of he just had one off night, and the next time he'll come back better than ever. You never really know. But if I was the next opponent up against John and I was watching that fight in preparation, I would definitely think, hey, this guy's not invincible. This guy has definitely some holes.
Definitely not invincible. Definitely not invincible. So, did you hear about the Sour Patch Kids thing?
What about the Sour Patch Kids thing?
Well,
it's a good segue.
So they had these. I think they're orange Sour Patch Kids. Tasted like grapefruit. So people apparently hate the Sour Patch Kids grapefruit flavor, and there was some kind of error when they were making them, and now they all taste like grapefruit. Commenting on the Sour Patch Kids page, and they were noticing this over 2-3 months, saying I thought I was crazy, you know what I mean? Oh no, and then the account was assuring them oh no, you're not crazy, the flavors are messed up. But the way they were saying it is they were our orange little kid got in trouble,
trying to make
we gotta see what he got himself into. What's your code number for your bag? And it's just every comment is like that though. If someone says I had a green one that it was half exploded and it was black, people will be they'll be what did our green little boy get himself into? He's a known troublemaker, and they'll say stuff like that. It's just a cringy, weird
corporate behavior on social media is kind of weird.
Yeah.
I've seen some kind of awesome... Wendy's is pretty awesome. I gotta give them credit for that. But it is kind of weird at the same time because while you're laughing at it, you're oh wait, they're just doing this because they want me to go and get a biggie bag.
It's not Wendy's. It's just some social media influencer that essentially got their account that just knows how to post. Isn't that weird too?
Well, that's crazy too because a person like that now. That if you're a big corporation like that and you can hire a savvy social media coordinator that posts like that gets those big viral posts, I mean that person could be worth millions of dollars.
They do it about wrestling and football all the time. like say one social media chain will post like in support of like a team, the other social media chain will find the opposing team and like support them, and then get a huge pushback, and it's like it is pretty clever. It's funny. It's like next level commercials, you know.
It is. I mean, those are better than commercials, I would say. At least it's like. But the only problem then becomes a lot of those corporations don't want to like hire somebody that will be like edgy or post things that like because they don't want to alienate like a whole large part of their customer base. But I don't know. I think that it's kind of a weird landscape that we're in with corporations on social media, how they act.
Yeah.
Especially like YouTube.
I mean, you know, back in the day though, they they had those. I don't know if it was like a funny junk video or whatever, but the whole thing where like Ronald McDonald and Burger King were both in the Burger King were both in gangs, and they were like fighting each other at the restaurants and shit.
Dude,
like that,
I mean, it's kind of funny to parlay it into what we talk about UFC, wrestling, and stuff like that. I mean, if you're a social, like say you're a company like Burger King and McDonald's, it would be smart for both of you to get into like a social
work
media
together,
team.
build up,
and build up that beef like UFC fighters do or wrestlers do. Where like,
I think we're flying a little too close to the sun. Hey, we had another podcast.
Okay.
We had another podcast idea. We kind of want to start this. It's called I Don't Know. But where like we just talk about like history and like stuff like this, or like I don't know, but it's just like a loose interpretation of what we
alternative histories that we can't really verify, but we're kind of confident happened.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's definitely be on the lookout for that.
I'm thinking, I think that'll be a fun one. So then we have that Sour Patch PR thing, and so another thing was going back to the Truman Show and all that. I started seeing Facebook ads. And not really Facebook ads, more so memes that people share. But now when people share, like they don't share text, they share images of words. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, or like they'll take like a picture of like an actor, like Tom Hardy or whatever, and it's just like, I like coffee and I like 3 people, and it's just like, wait, why does that? Yeah. Or a picture of Adam Sandler, you know what I mean? Like,
well, so there was 3 separate ones the other day, and I took screenshots of them on my phone, but like they're all in a row, and they pretty much say like, you're not special. Shut the fuck up and do your job. And the next one was like, I work all day. Blah blah blah. I have no time for games. I don't know why everyone else is posting. But there was 3 of them that pretty much said the same thing. Like, don't share your happiness. Fuck you. You know what I mean? One of those.
There's a lot of people.
But I was thinking like that. It's like social media fucking Truman shows. Everybody's posting the same memes. This with the same same ideas. Just like.
Yeah, like right now, Area 51 memes. That's just.
But like in an unentertaining like simulation type of bullshit, simulated just blah away, where there's no variety. And I mean, there are some people that post memes, but even then, like if you post memes, you just follow Reddit on new instead of hot. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you just get to the stuff.
Most people aren't posting original content or sharing original content. It's something they saw someplace.
Like, and I like memes too. I love, but
same.
The oversharing of memes, or like at first the Gene Wilder thing, like Gene Wilder memes were fucking hilarious, and then like the second week of them hit, and then like
or like the first time I saw like a Obama Biden meme, like I thought that that's kind of funny or whatever, but then like after I saw 10 million of them, I'm like no thanks.
And yeah, so I guess the problem is oversaturation, but oversaturation of like the same type of content over and over again, or like just
yeah. I mean, even look at Hollywood as far as like everything's a remake, all that other stuff.
The whole Disney lineup, What do you think about the Disney thing? I had something that I wanted to say.
Go ahead. I mean, if you're gonna.
So what I think. All right. So I think people are mad. All right. So all the changes for all these various different Disney, The Lion King, Aladdin, The Little Mermaid. What the fuck, Dumbo? What the fuck else did they make? I'm sure something else is coming out that I'm forgetting. Toy Story, but that's not a remake. It's
kind of like an extension.
Yes, yeah. But all right, so clearly Disney it's under the guise of like, oh, we're targeting kids, we're advertising to kids, right?
Right.
This is a targeted nostalgia selection from late '80s, early '90s, um, you
Yes.
know, late maybe like late '90s with maybe one or two of the remakes coming up, but that's what it is, and I think so. People are mad because their nostalgia is fucked up. I don't think it's necessarily a. I know it's a lot of it's been made into a whatever, depending on which which movie we're talking about,
Right.
whichever issue. But I think a lot of it is just like people are mad that their nostalgia is getting fucked up, and I think they have a right to be mad that their nostalgia is getting fucked up when they're being targeted. Like even with the Pokemon movies. If there was some crazy inconsistency with the Pokemon movie, people would be fucking furious. And like even seeing that some of the Pokemon were furry that they didn't think were gonna be furry, like they were like, "What the fuck is this?" You know what I mean? And
yeah, I definitely get what you're saying. I think. Go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
I think in some cases the backlash against the original Backlash is worse. Like like with the what's the new one?
The Little Mermaid.
The Little Mermaid with Ariel and not Halle Berry, Haley Berry, right?
Yeah.
Halle Bailey or
something,
something like that. Because I had people telling me Halle Berry was gonna.
By the way, also I gotta just say this whole thing has to be amazing. Like the people that are making this movie must be like, oh my god, thank God people. Are talking about it like this.
Well, there's a meme that Halle Berry wakes up and is like, why the fuck people talking about me? Like, because people said the wrong name.
Yep.
Halle Berry is apparently dating Brian Ortega. I don't know if they're dating, but they definitely look like they're dating, And
sometimes people look like they're dating.
He trained her for some upcoming movie role she's in, and like they've been seen on screen together like a bunch of times and stuff, like So, I mean, yeah, swinging a home run.
Yeah, that's funny.
But anyways,
yeah.
So the issue with that, I think people are mad that it's more so like it fucks up their nostalgia.
Their concept of what it's supposed to be.
Is there a real problem with it? No.
Right.
Is for example, this is what I wrote about Aladdin too. If you're going in there with the expectations that it's the same thing you saw as a kid, you might not want to go. But if you have a kid, take your kid to go see it because that is.
And that's honestly what it's for. That's really more what it's
for.
I mean, they're trying to get the money out of it too.
In this, I think you also have to realize if they make a movie 20 years from now, and Ariel now is an Asian girl, people are gonna say, "Why is she not black? She was black when I was a kid."
Right.
The people that will be kids now watching it. You know
what you're saying. Yeah.
Like I don't think it ever really stops.
Yeah.
As far as like, I think to that end, it's just a fucked up nostalgia goggles.
Mm-hmm.
I
think that's a big.
I'm not saying like everybody has that opinion for that reason, but that's why and I'm not even saying.
Yeah, like personally, to me, it's just.
I don't know if it should be. I don't even know if these movies should be fucking remade.
I don't think they should.
At least
either.
I think they should be remade, but maybe like one a year.
Yeah,
or
they shouldn't be their sole focus and purpose at this point. Which is what it seems like they're striving towards. With
how come we have 6 or 7 now?
Yeah.
In the last, things must have really went bad for the last original one they did or something. You know what I mean?
And there's so many more other independent movie makers, filmmakers that I'm sure are coming up with really great ideas that could use that platform in lieu of these. But I mean, I get what you're saying completely. I think it's one of those things where it almost it's kind of a weird trap if you're the company that's making the stuff, right? Because like you want to give it an adequate amount of space to breathe, so like you don't have a ton of blowback as far as making changes. But you also like want to make money off the nostalgia thing. So it's like Star Wars, for example. Star Wars, it's not the same cast of characters, but if you look at like the model, it's basically they're just kind of regurgitating the same model from before. They're trying to make it so that these newer actors and newer stars, are going to be what what Luke Skywalker and Anakin and everybody was to Princess Leia. That's what they're trying to do, while also make it so that people that saw those movies 30 years ago are so interested that they want to spend their money on it too. And I think it's kind of a tricky thing because you don't want to change the source material on something that is like for example, like say they did a Sopranos movie and they made
which
like
is
James
coming,
right, but they put like the guy that's playing James Gandolfini or like if they do like as somebody that's not like Italian or like just like let's say it's like a Korean guy for example or whatever the case might be. Like I could understand where people would be like that doesn't really make any sense because this movie is about like the Italian mafia in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Why would you kind of have to have that?
Yeah.
You know, so but as far as like fictional stuff, that becomes a little bit more broad.
Yeah.
Like I mean, like that is Sopranos is fictional, obviously, but like it's
Yeah.
supposed to be based on real happenings. Whereas like Aladdin or The Little Mermaid, I can
Have you
understand how
seen
they're
some of the
making more creative
cancerous
licenses.
discussions that have evolved because of the Little Mermaid thing?
Oh yeah,
People trying to talk like scientifically, it wouldn't be a mermaid would have scales, and it wouldn't even have
like yeah,
obviously
just,
like this whole thing is fucking retarded. Like if anyone's arguing about the little fucking mermaid, I'm sorry, you are fucking dumb as shit. Good if you're arguing for or against the little fucking mermaid. You're entitled to your opinion, but as far as like if you're actually like
there's so many
wasting
more
time
serious
debating people,
issues
are
that
you
are
fucking
concerned.
serious? Come on.
Yeah, and like
Jesus.
I understand why like people like bring it up because like yeah, I get that it's important to have like representation and arts and everything like that, but at the same time,
Yeah.
it's just that there's so many more bigger issues that are going on in the world as far as representation that don't involve the Little Mermaid, and we could probably have those discussions and make some more progress towards those ends rather than talking about this movie. But
Yeah, and I do want to know what people think about it.
yeah, whatever you guys think.
But I guess what I'm saying is like there's no reason to be upset one way or another. Like
I
just
agree.
give your opinion and fucking move on.
Also, it hasn't even been made yet.
You know what I mean?
Like can we involve that part of the conversation? Like it hasn't even been made yet. Like what if it comes out and it's way better than the original? Like who knows what it could be. So it's just like people gotta I think hold their horses.
Did you see
a
any of
little
the
bit.
remakes yet?
As far as like Aladdin and everything?
Any of them?
No, to be honest with you. I'm not really that interested.
I saw Aladdin.
I didn't watch a lot of them when I was a kid. So.
I had no gripes about the casting, but I did have gripes about. I mean, maybe Will Smith's genie a little bit was a little underwhelming, but you got the Robin Williams factor. I'm sure. All right, so let me put it this way: if Robin Williams was alive and he came out and he said, "Will Smith, you have my blessing," you know what I mean? I wish you well. I don't think anyone would have a problem with it. But since he's not, there's like those Disney purists that are like, the original is Robin Williams. This is a disgrace.
Yeah.
But so like with that, for example, I had a problem with changing some of the original script, but not the casting at all. I don't think the casting was
Yeah. I get that too.
And maybe like even with the casting, like I don't have a problem with Will Smith playing Genie, but it looked like he didn't want to be there when he was doing like A Friend Like Me and shit like that. It looked like he'd rather be anywhere else,
yeah, and I think it depends too on like what the source material it was, right? Because like one of my favorite movie of all time is probably Watchmen, and like that's based off of a graphic novel, written a few decades prior to that. And the ending of that movie is completely different than the ending of the graphic novel. If anybody's read it, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's one of those things where not as many people were familiar with the source material of Watchmen when they went and saw the movie 30 years later. So like they couldn't be upset or have gripes about the change because they just weren't even aware of what the original story was. That's different, with like something like Aladdin or The Lion King but I mean at the same time you look back at like what the deep origins of those stories were, I'm sure that they were changed so much to get to where they were now.
And see that's another thing is I know it might have sounded like, I guess stupid that I was saying earlier, like this is a nostalgia trip targeted at these 19, 20-year-olds. I'm aware that these stories have existed for like thousands of years.
Right, but those are you're right. That's the demographic that it's targeting to.
Yeah,
100%. They're trying to get people like you and I to like relive.
They're not targeting somebody that's a fan of the fucking King of Thieves and Aladdin and the King of Thieves and the Thousand Lamps or Thousand Nights of whatever. For they're targeting the people that directly watch those movies. It's not. Like,
well, and it's I guess it kind of boils down to like if something's being remade, do you want it to be 100% true to what it originally was, or do you think that the people making it should take some creative license and make alterations to it to make it more interesting and more dynamic for the
Yeah,
era that they're doing it in?
and
Because if you just do the same thing as it was before, like what's the point of doing it again? You know?
I think there is a way to do creative license properly, like just add things and make things better. But like you can't do things for Aladdin, for example. They had like the whole um, the lead prison guard. I'm not exactly sure what his name is, but I don't know. But you know what I'm talking about, right? The lead prison guard,
Mm-hmm.
the one that wears the hat that's like Aladdin has the fuck he has that like sword. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? That's like a U-shaped sword. They turned him into they tried to make it like a political thing at the end of Aladdin, where essentially they had they had him and they had like Jasmine, and she was saying like you've been loyal to our family for like however many years, you've never wronged us, and you know Jafar's trying to control him with his I don't know if it was his staff or just sorcerer powers, but they turned it was just unnecessary. That wasn't in the original movie, and it didn't add anything to the movie. Like you just did it to try to put like some weird political message in there.
Yeah,
Like to me, that's unnecessary. Like, and
I get that.
I'm not saying that like big overarching stories are unnecessary, but like quite literally, you made the one of the henchmen in Aladdin. You tried to make him like a loyal, cool servant for like the sake of like for what?
Yeah, I get
You
what
know
you're
what I
saying.
mean?
It can kind of, and it's weird too because like to me like all art is trying to like get you to think something. You know,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be a moral, a lesson,
Yeah.
and you might think that that's an agenda. What I mean, you can put an agenda I think on any art almost, but with that, I get what you're saying as far as like sometimes you gotta like if you're trying to make a bigger point like that, you have to almost kind of put a vitamin in the steak. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you have to do it
Yep.
in a way where
And
it's not so obvious, but a
yeah.
little bit more subtle. And the people that are like predisposed to disagree with whatever point you're making, like they at least have to take the time to consider it because they might not even realize that that's what's being made at that point. You
Yeah.
know?
You know, it's a lot like music nowadays. It's like people were scared to sing about like having sex and drugs and stuff and it's like no, they sang about that stuff. They just put a little they put it a little more tastefully. Like they masked
It
it,
was different. Yeah,
They
it
like you
was
said
different.
the vitamin and the steak. I like that. Like
Yeah, no, I mean it
yeah,
was definitely different
you
as far
didn't
as
necessarily know what you were eating, but you were eating it.
yeah, 100%.
And
And that's what makes great art a lot of the times too. I will say.
subtlety
Yeah.
is
Sometimes less is more.
yeah. I mean, can you think of? I mean, all the great stories have that. Where it's things that aren't directly explained to you.
Yeah, show me, don't tell me. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not going to tell you this character has this traits. I'm going to show you in
Yep.
the form of him acting this way in this
Yep.
scene, acting in this way,
Yep.
acting in this
You
way.
know. You
You know?
know what I heard the other day that got me thinking very differently about movies and things is when you are creating a character, your villains are supposed to state like cold hard truths and foreshadow things, like almost exclusively, all right, say I walk into your house and like you're a kid and like say we're remaking like Home Alone and I'm trying to figure out if your parents are home. I don't say like, hey kid, are your parents home? And you state your parents aren't home. I come
Right.
in and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Like, you making anything for dinner tonight? You know what I mean? And like, I start asking like questions like that, and you start alluding to the fact that your parents aren't coming home, and visually, the audience gets it, and I get it, but it's never
Yes.
directly said.
Exactly.
And they were saying like good villains always do that. They always give
Yeah,
you
well, because it's almost like because if the villain is spitting out like those cold hard truths as the audience, you're like, dang, like damn, like that the villain's right, but at the same time, you're like, that's the villain. I'm not supposed to be rooting for the
yeah,
villain, so it's like
yeah.
kind of creates like that tension within itself there too. Um, yeah, I think that's definitely true as far as a lot of the stories that I've seen and read.
And storytelling is just crazy. It really is crazy.
It is.
It's you know,
how similar a lot of stories are, but so different in different ways. Like I don't know.
yeah, it used to make me mad in like seventh, eighth grade when English teachers try to take try to take this like little novel and turn it into like who's the protagonist, who's the antagonist, what are the rising actions, what's the climb, and you try to break down all these stories, and that's actually really fun to do, but
Yeah,
it just has to be a good story. It
yeah,
can't be a
that's a
bullshit
good story.
story. And that was a problem I think with a lot of like schooling in general. Is just like and
Stuff that you weren't
shit was
interested
just
in.
not interested in. Like you can only be so interested about like Tuck Everlasting and like all that shit. You know what I mean? Like
A separate piece.
yeah, like even of Mice and Men, as good as that was, and that was probably the most that or like The Outsiders
Those are great.
was the most engaged I ever got with like a book, like in school. You know what I mean? Like an in school book.
Yeah.
But even those weren't that great of stories. I'm not saying Of Mice and Men isn't a good feel good story or whatever. You know what I mean? Up until the end, it's like a bro story really up until the very end. Um,
Yeah. I
and
mean, the
then
story itself might. Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's not like the most interesting, but it's just the kind of the way that it's written, man. Like, I don't know, John Steinbeck with The Mice and Men. He was I don't know, great writer, and just the way that everything is done. That's the reason why people still talk about it. So,
yeah,
but I get what you're saying too, as far as like, there's a lot of material that you get thrown at you when you're in school and you're not really interested in it remotely, and when you're getting all this dictation from your English teacher that you got to break down a story and look at it this way and
yeah.
look at it this way. It's like sometimes
And it's all like
your
short,
interpretation gets
shitty
lost on
short
it.
stories.
Yeah.
And we're not even talking about like mythology or anything like that where like the shit was interesting. We're talking about like fucking
Yeah.
you know
And sometimes and sometimes like with art, the fun part about it, right, is you get to interpret it like the way that you want to. So like when you're in a class where they're telling you like, oh no, this was written because it means this and it means this and it means this. Well, maybe in your opinion, the author was trying to get a different point across, or maybe the songwriter was trying to get a different point across. So it's like that's the great thing about art is that you're able to interpret it how you want. And sometimes when you got to write an essay to cater to whatever your teacher's opinion is on something.
You know what my one of my favorite things was in like sixth grade? Those optical illusions where it's like it's two pictures simultaneously at once. Like I don't know if you've ever seen it, but the picture of like the old woman and the young woman.
Yes.
Depending on how like your
And
perspective.
it's almost kind of like an
it,
hourglass almost.
Those are my favorite
Those are crazy
things. I mean, well, they were. I mean, in school to look at like, um, but like I don't know, like why is school literature so boring? Even like book reports, like when they let you pick your own stuff, it's just not fun. You know, when did you start having fun with like books and like?
Well, like I always liked books when I was younger, when I was like third, fourth, fifth grade. That's when I started reading like pretty heavily. And I feel like that was more because at that time, like I wasn't forced necessarily to do it so much. And then when we got more into like high school and college beginning and everything, it's like it's a chore now. It's not like I'm doing this because I want to do this. I'm doing this because I have to do this, and it's due next Tuesday. And that can rob the joy and the value out of a lot of those things, because I feel like a lot of stuff that people read in school, they probably, if they read it outside of school now, under no pressure to like do a book report or do an essay or whatever, just do it on their own, they probably wouldn't hate a lot of those stories as much as they did when they were kids.
That's how I feel about what's the one with Holden and
Catcher in the Rye.
Catcher in the Rye, yeah. I feel like I would have liked that outside of it, but like on a deadline and having to analyze it and like.
Yeah, because you're not doing it on your own volition, so it's like you're getting dragged to a movie that you don't want to watch with a friend, like, and you don't want to say no because you're being too nice, right? It's like how invested are you going to be in it, unless it's something super amazing, or you might just like be predisposed to not like the movie because you don't want to be there, right? So that's how I kind of feel about it. Is like probably like a lot of those stories. Like I know that for me, I hated A Separate Piece when I read that in high school. I thought it was terrible and boring as hell. Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. I mean, that was so dry to me when I was reading it. But I don't know. I mean, if I went back and read it now without having to do like a report on it or something, and it was just me interpreting it on my own, I might enjoy it. It really depends,
Damn.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of more books that we read in like school that were just just not.
All Quiet on the Western Front was another one I didn't really. I mean, it
Like
was okay.
a Call to the Wild is something too that like I know it's like revered and people like still freak out about it, but like you know I just they just never fucking connected with me.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot of books too that we never really read in school that we should have like. I read like Moby Dick, like and everything, and like I didn't get to ever read that in school. That would have been a great fucking book to read in school. Or For Whom the Bell Tolls, or I'm trying to think of like a lot of other titles. I don't know. There's so many different
I
books out
think
there.
we spent a lot of time reading like so in school. I feel like my view of reading material even was like only books or novels. Where like now it's like articles, scientific journals,
Mm-hmm.
magazines,
Yeah,
stuff like
definitely.
that. Where like I wish we spent more time doing that. And it seems like the only magazines we got in school were like we got a Time magazine for everybody, or like kids, stuff like that. Where like it wasn't like those are real magazines, but you know what I mean, like
Yeah,
not a wide variety of like you have Sports Illustrated and you have
like
like
National
that. You don't
Geographic.
have yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty much it. And even I think librarians did us a huge disservice in the early 2000s who like made everybody scared of the internet. Tried to quote unquote properly teach us how to like Google things and just taught us essentially a bunch of
Yeah. Try
C
to
plus
basically teach
plus.
you that the only thing that only like information you could trust is like stuff that you found in the library essentially. Like if you
Yeah,
found it like on Wikipedia, and I'm not
which
saying that Wikipedia is the best source of all time, but there's a lot of true things that you can read on Wikipedia too, right?
but in
So
that sense, we were limited to what 1980, 1996. There was
mhm.
no books published after 96 until when we were in school in like 01, 02, 03. You know,
Mhm.
the new books were all like kids' books or like maybe autobiographies or something. We didn't have any actual fucking
Like classics and stuff like yeah,
yeah.
like newer
It was
material.
just it
Outside of
was
like Harry Potter, I guess, which I don't know when
yeah,
exactly that came out, but
and that really sucks because I'd like to think ideally they teach you how to really search, really find things online. You know, like they wouldn't let us like, and I get the reasons behind not using Wikipedia, but like even then, like use Wikipedia and go to the bottom and look at the links, like look at the research articles that like
yeah.
support the things, and you know
Hmm.
stuff like that. It's
Well,
just
and then it's also like at the same time telling you then like if you went to like the website for the Washington Post, the New York Times, and you cited an article from that was 100% true, which that's not necessarily the case either.
yep,
Because like if you're a little kid, you don't know the difference between an op-ed section from the New York Times and what's supposed to be the real news, right? Like you don't know how to distinguish those two things from
yeah,
one another.
yep,
And then also, just because it comes from a institution that is verified like at a higher public level, it doesn't necessarily mean that the material is coming out is true. I mean, the
yeah,
Washington Post, you might be reading an article from them that day that got printed, and then in a week they might be writing a correction about it. So
yep,
it's one of those things where it's like I feel like they taught us not to like utilize the internet fully, like when we were doing like librarian stuff in school, and also I feel like they would only allow you to go to like these three or four sources of information are correct.
yep.
Everything else is BS, which is not true.
Think about it too: is how much time did you spend on doing works cited? We're talking like 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks on just doing here, take these articles, cite them for no reason in the proper order. We need to make sure you can do this. How many times have you cited an article in your adult life? Even in like college, maybe like maybe on like three papers where you likely had it automated for you,
Right.
the sourcing
You
of
have
it.
some
You know what I mean?
programs, yeah.
Or like you looked at a template that was so easily available you would never have to. The same idea with like I've seen this too, which bothers me is people want to get rid of like algebra and all that stuff, and I get it. Maybe it's not that useful, but the relationships between numbers, like in math, so like the same way that they didn't really teach us how to use the internet in like the library, even though they were teaching us how to properly use the internet in a mature way, whatever the fuck they wanted to fucking spill their bullshit. Um, Math, it's the same way. We shouldn't have learned hard hard algebra necessarily. We should have learned the relationship between all the things that we were learning. You know,
Yes. To make you
like
actually be invested in why you're learning about it.
it's like an ellipsis. it's like, you know, the closer the coefficient gets to like zero, the closer it is to what, a circle, and the closer it gets to one, the closer it is to a flat,
I think so.
flat,
I
or
think you're right.
vice versa.
Yeah.
But either way, like it's that we need to be learning like what happens when the numbers rise and fall like on a graph, and like
Why is this information material to my life? Like, why should I care about
yes,
this?
what is the relationship between these things, not the hard numbers of like calculating it.
I agree too. Like that's what I think is like something I've found after like being out of schooling for a while now is that when it comes to like mathematical concepts, I find them like pretty fascinating now. Whereas like 5, 6, 10 years ago, I would have hated even trying to like do anything about it because I just always considered it more of a chore and like I never really understood like why am I doing this? Like for what reason? Like what application would I? And I'm not saying that you should judge education only on the merit of like how can you apply this to like the specific thing because math definitely helps train your brain to be a problem solver
because
which is important.
You need to be able to. You do need to be able to count, and you need to be able to do basic algebra, and you need to be able to do all those things
and follow the formulas.
Understand.
Yeah.
Like, all right. So in calculus, one of the most useful things I learned was they drilled into our heads the graphs. I could graph, and I don't know if I can still do it now, but I could graph anything. You give me 9x to the third power plus 4x, to the second power plus, fucking 3x plus 15 minus 9. I could graph it without even pulling out a calculator, doing anything. I could just pull me out a grid. I can tell you where it crosses at the exact points and just draw like the exact graph. Stuff like that I think is really useful. Being able to read graphs and look at graphs and even maps,
yeah,
all that type of stuff. But
100%, and it just trains your brain to think in a certain way, right? Like
yeah.
you need like sometimes like a lot of the times when you're doing a math problem, you might hit a wall a couple times before you figure it out, right? And you got to like follow a process, follow steps to solve a problem, and troubleshoot sometimes.
Yep.
And I think that's valuable within itself.
Were you scared to ask questions in school?
I wasn't so much scared to ask questions. It's just that I was definitely anxious in school a lot. Like I didn't want to like, I don't know. If I had a question, I would be more likely to like go home and look it up afterwards. Than
I would too. Yeah, and it depends.
Just because sometimes people also misunderstand like what you're asking about when you're asking about it, and like think that you're a complete idiot because they don't grasp fully what you're trying to get at. So.
Yeah, I never. It's not that I didn't ask. It depended on the relationship I had with the teacher, I guess.
Yes.
If
the teacher doesn't know anything, like why are you gonna ask him?
Well, I felt in a lot of ways like it was like we either had a symbiotic relationship, or we're both gonna do really well, or if I'm doing bad, I'm not like if I don't like you, pretty much, I'm not gonna fucking listen to what you say. I'm not gonna take your information. I'm not gonna fucking I'm gonna take everything with a fucking grain of salt and fucking make sure first. I think that had a lot to do with it. Like in classes that I didn't like, with teachers that I didn't like, it was really hard to like get the information in. Like, do you have any teachers that you think were good teachers that you didn't like? Maybe one or two, but for the most part, if you think the teacher was a good teacher, you got the information really well.
Yeah,
and generally. you jived done really well.
Yeah, if you have like a more positive relationship, because I don't know, like I've definitely had that in like school and work, for example, like where like somebody above me I thought wasn't like like the nicest person ever, but I knew that they knew their job really well. Like I would listen to them when they would tell me what to do, even if I was like, damn dude, like why are you bugging me all the time? You know what I mean? Like I would be, even if I didn't like that person, I knew that they had an expertise, so I'm gonna like listen to what they're saying. But then there's some teachers where it's like a lot of my like dislike for a teacher would be predicated on the fact that like I didn't think that they were doing a good job as far as educating us on something, or like
I had a lot of those, man. I'm telling you, I had a couple specifically.
Like if you were giving me good information, like I wouldn't have a problem with you. But if I felt like you didn't know your job, like if I'm asking, like I remember I had a.
Let's throw him under the bus. Fiorentino. I had fucking Fiorentino. Are you fucking kidding me? You're a fucking teacher? Are you shitting me?
Oh no.
What the fuck?
That's funny.
Like, listen. I go into class. You read me a page out of the textbook, and you say Mesopotamia and Egypt 3 or 4 times, and that's it. And we leave. I didn't learn fucking anything. Geography.
Just saying a bunch of buzzwords.
Geography. Yeah, what the fuck? You said geography 9 times in Mesopotamia. You just kept saying it, and you think you're cool and funny. Who employed you? Did you pass your tests? You did. You passed your tests to know all this stuff. Okay. Well, then how come I haven't? How come it's been a glorified textbook reading?
Yeah, I had a teacher for my freshman design, drawing, and production for like tech, and I remember we were studying for the final because if we passed the final, we would have gotten some college credit, and we were going over this study guide and this fake final beforehand, and we're reviewing it all as a class. The teacher's up at the front of the class, and he's like, okay, so what does everybody have for answer for question number 1? Everybody gives a different answer because nobody knows what they're doing because he did a terrible job teaching us. And then 2, he'd just be like, after there'd be a bunch of, debate and confusion as to what the right answer was, where you'd assume the teacher would come in and give you the correct answer, he'd be like, yeah, I'm not really sure about that. Let's go to number 2. And he did that for like half the questions on the study guide for this final that we're supposed to take.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, like, you don't even know what you're teaching us. How am I supposed to fucking respect you? I don't want to drop any names.
Nah, give me some initials.
Mr. P.
Okay. Well, jeez. Yeah, I mean, I had a few like that, man, and I don't even know what to say about bad teachers because I went in.
They can make you hate a subject.
Well,
that's the other thing. They might turn you off. Like, say that is your first interaction ever with whatever subject you're meeting. They might really turn you off because you might assume as you are a kid, like, hey man, like this subject is garbage because this person is garbage. When in reality, you might actually love the subject and just get turned off.
What the hell was her name? Oh my god! If I think of it, I'll say it. I can't remember it for some reason. Mrs. McConnell. Yeah, I remember who the fuck it is. So listen, I I have not run into a worse teacher than her. Like, I'm not saying she didn't know her shit, but she had the most condescending, fucking shit-eating, fucking go fuck yourself grin that I have ever seen. She was happy when kids were struggling and having a difficult time. I'm struggling, so you should be struggling. Me? I didn't have
yeah. I think there might be. I don't know. So, I thought she was a great. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'm telling you. Listen, and some people might have liked her. They might have had a great relationship with her. But honestly, that was a class where like I would just get up and leave. I just literally stand up like, I'm not doing this today. I'd get up and walk out. She knew the drill too. To her credit, she never really gave me a hard time. It was like, I don't like you, you don't like me. Well, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? To her credit, she never put up resistance.
That's awesome.
But man, I went, and there's nothing you could do to get these people removed either. And I don't mean like, I'm not saying she should be fired, but for example, like I went into a couple guidance counselor appointments and they were asking me like, how you doing in there? You rocking and rolling with Miss McConnell? Like, and I was like, no, honestly, she's not like a real teacher. We don't do anything. He's like, what do you mean? Like I dropped a bomb, and I was like, listen, I go in there, I sit there. We had this nicer older lady that came in, and she was like an aide for some of the kids. She made her teach the class. She didn't even do it. She sat in the back. So, okay, so you have an aide come in, teach the class. You sit in the back. You don't really do anything. You're jerking around back there. And like that's what I said. I said, we don't really do anything. That was the biggest problem I had with it is like the year before in Fiorentino, we're not doing anything. We are not learning anything. There is nothing that I came in here this whole year, last whole year, that I have learned. We've if anything, we've gone over stuff we did in 4th, 5th, 6th grade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like as far as global history. And man, like I just remember being at a standstill and feeling, even feeling that, well, that wasn't the only class either. There was 4 or 5 of those where I said, "Hey, man, this isn't a real class. We don't do anything here. It's like a glorified study hall. We really don't do anything, and they don't have anything to tell you. There's nothing they can tell you. What are they gonna do? Are they gonna? They could move you around to another class that you might like. You know what I mean? But other than that, what are they gonna do?
No, they're probably not going to do much then.
And I always thought that was just the stupidest thing. Feeling trapped in school in a class you're literally not doing anything in. And I get it. People don't want to be in school, and I hear a lot of kids who weren't even passing. Oh, I don't want to be in school. It's a waste of time. Like, no, I'm passing. I was getting really good grades. I did not want to fucking be in these fucking classes.
Yeah, same here.
You know what I mean? Like,
I was getting decent grades, and I did not want to be there at all.
I had no problem even being in like AP classes and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was just
But
a problem with me. At least it was just like I'm not.
I need
trying
to
have
see
my
the
life
point.
regimented. Like
I need
this,
to see the point in what I'm doing here, or we are not gonna have a very good time.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna have a good time. You're not gonna have. I just want to know what the point is.
Yeah, I feel like engagement is the biggest thing for education. Like you have to be engaged. You have to care about it, and that's what good teachers do, right? Is they make you invest in yourself and invest in your caring about a subject or something.
Yeah, well, I mean,
if you're not engaged and you don't think there's any point to it, then like why are you going to go home and put in the extra effort to study for 2 hours?
And I gotta say, on the other hand, I had some people who weren't my teachers, like Mrs. Penna. She wasn't my teacher. She was for better or worse a random person in the school that I probably wasn't even supposed to meet. You know what I mean? That I just wandered into the K one day and was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And she was just a nice lady that helped me out, and I feel like I learned more from her than I did some of these people claiming to be teachers that wanted to play the game. And I don't want to name drop anybody. I already did a little bit as far as shitty teachers. Sorry, yeah, I don't give a shit about. I don't care about that. But as far as other people that like, she Mrs. Penna just helped more than I'd say anybody else. Yeah, she deserved to be there and be paid more than 90% of the people at UE.
Yeah, she definitely provided a lot of value to the student community there. I would agree. And too, I was gonna say on the other end of that, I definitely had some teachers too that were super influential on me and were amazing. So props to those people as well. There's bad ones, but there's also amazing ones. So
and like Mr. Medina, do you ever hear anyone say a bad thing about Mr. Medina?
No.
Ever? No. And a big part of it is
like most of the teachers, that's probably the case. There's just a select handful.
Yeah. Like I was gonna say with Medina, like, hey man, you care about your students. You don't put up with shit. You'll have fun, but you won't put up with bullshit if someone's like challenging you to not get the work done or something. But you cared, and people can feel that you care. They know that you care, and that just helps. I mean, it just makes it enjoyable.
That's why I liked First so much for Spanish too.
Yeah,
like he cared about it, and he cared about you getting it.
Yep.
I wasn't there so he could display how much he knew about Spanish.
He was one of my favorite teachers.
He was trying to actually get you to understand.
There was always a respect there. It's always like, yeah, he always had a no bullshit attitude.
Yeah.
We're getting our work done here today.
Yeah.
We're
going a lot of people didn't like it. Yeah, a lot of people didn't like him because of it.
I'm calling on everybody once. I'm getting everybody involved for participation.
Or even like for my, I had accounting a couple of years in high school with Ansbro, and for a while there, like I hated the fact that I knew every single time I went into that class, I had to do something.
Yeah.
But like that's how it should be. You know what I mean? Like no wasted time.
I mean, that's how, Mrs. Bradley, that's how it was with her. Is like, this is gonna be a little bit like boot camp, guys. Sorry, but
but by the end of it, if you actually are here and you follow it, you're gonna be much better off for it.
Even if you're the dumbest motherfucker in here, you're gonna know calculus. You know what I mean?
That's funny.
No child left behind for her. She wasn't having any of it. Yeah. She was dragging it right through the fucking mud.
He's the one that got them to push that through Congress.
Yeah. And there were a lot of good teachers at UE, but there were a few too. I mean,
I'm sure it's like that probably everywhere you go.
I mean, personally, Teresa, I love Teresic. I had a good relationship with him. I don't have a bad thing to say about the guy, but there were. Do you know anyone more disruptive as a teacher, regardless of who's in the right or who's in the wrong? Okay, that's something. Regardless of who's in the right, who's in the wrong. Do you know anybody who has more interactions or like incidents with children than Teresic? Anybody?
No, and I definitely I had him, and honestly, I didn't think he was a bad teacher. Like you could tell like he was just trying to show up and do his job and get through his day, but like he just had a lot of rough goes of it, for so many years. So he had a very short fuse, like short temper, man. Like he just wasn't. He was trying to exercise control of the classroom, but like he didn't really realize that sometimes when he did that, he derailed it more than it would have gotten derailed originally. And then two,
and hey, like I said,
it comes down to a respect thing too. A lot of those people didn't respect him, so like they weren't going to listen to anything he said.
And I was going to say I like the guy, but did you notice sometimes he wrongly threw the blame at somebody who wasn't involved, who was on his side trying to make sure the class was just orderly.
Yeah.
And then it would just be like disarray because it's like, hey man, I was helping you out, now you're yelling at me.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I remember like there was a time where like I had never had an issue with him. It was probably like about a month and a half into like me being a student underneath him, and I just went up to his desk randomly to like ask a question one day about something, and like I don't know, he just had a very dismissive tone and response, like basically like, why are you coming up and asking me about this? Like I don't want to talk to you. And it was like, dude, like I'm trying to be nice to you. Like the other 20 kids in here like doing spitballs and playing the penis game and doing all this stuff to be as disruptive and crazy as possible, and I'm just trying to ask you a genuine question and you like don't even want to give me the time of day. Like that's where it was kind of like, I guess I see where other people are coming from.
Yeah.
And
I do like the dynamic of teachers who don't take bullshit. Not teachers who like try to challenge people, I guess, because there are teachers on like a power trip.
Yeah. But you should be like, this is my class and we're getting something.
And you're not going to have good interactions with everybody either, There are some people who just aren't going to get along, I know I didn't get along with some teachers, but like it wasn't a problem. Like even Miss McConnell, it's like, hey, I'm not going to get along with you. You don't like me. I don't like you. We'll just go our separate ways. Like, and that's fine. Yeah. But,
I get what you're saying, man.
What about like sports coaches? Did you have a good relationship with any sports coaches?
Yeah. When I played modified football, I don't know why his name is escaping me right now.
Mr. Bennett.
Mr. Bennett was amazing.
No, I knew you were gonna say that only because I was gonna say in high school. No, I didn't really care for any of the UE football coaches. I mean, I'm not saying I wasn't friendly with them. Like, hey, how's it going? But as far as like, I didn't have a close personal relationship with any of them. But like Mr. Bennett, I feel like I could go up to Mr. Bennett in middle school.
About anything.
Hey man, how's it going? Hey Jess, how's it going? You having a nice day? You good? Yeah. Like, all right. If there was anything going on, I feel like I could have trusted him.
Same here. I felt like he gave off that vibe where he's like, I'm just here. Yeah, I'm a good guy.
Yeah. What do you got? Yeah.
Do you need help with something? I'll be the first person to help you.
Yeah, I'm here for you guys. Like we're here to have a good time. We're gonna have a nice, safe, fun time. We're gonna
like he was still about following the rules and everything.
Yep.
100%. But it was like, again, it was a respect thing. Like he gained the kids respect because he knew that.
I never had Jesus, I can't talk. I had a bad interaction with Mr. Mahalik.
I never did either.
I saw a couple of people.
I definitely saw a couple people that had some bad interactions.
Yeah, dude, I remember one time.
But I never personally.
I remember one time this kid threw a fucking. I've said this story before, but I don't know about it on the podcast. But this kid threw a basketball, and it fucking smacked this other kid right in the forehead, and he went down. He's crying, going down, and we're all running. While this was happening, we were all running our laps, but there were some basketballs in the gym, and it's like, right when gym starts, Mahalik comes out of his office. Who threw that? Who threw that? Everybody's running. Until I figure out who it is. So literally, he'd call out kids one by one and be like, hey, I know you didn't do it. Come here. And he'd be like, hey, since you didn't do it, who's one person that didn't do it? And they'd say one person that didn't do it. And then they'd come up. And then he'd say, all right, give me someone else who didn't do it. And then they'd come up. And then there's 80 kids running, 60 kids running. And then by the end of it, there's 3 kids running. One of the kids that did it, and 2 of his other little fucking friends, and they're fucking running in circles. and no one's saying anything. And he goes, "Hey," he goes, "you don't gotta tell me if they did it, but should I let any of them stop?" And no one says anything, and they just keep fucking running around the gym over and over again.
That sounds like him, man.
That shit was so like fucking funny. But like him, like I never. In fact, I had a good relationship with Mohammed.
I did too.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah. I never had any problems with him.
He is known to go off the walls a little bit.
He did have a temper.
Yeah.
Did have a temper.
Oh my god.
Not that he was unjustified, and most of the times he used it, he was justified, but
yeah,
he had a temper.
Yeah. Damn. But that's so funny. That's so funny. But yeah, I mean, in high school, I didn't think any of the coaches were that, any of the male coaches at least. I didn't really. Not that I have anything bad to say about them. And no, actually, I do have one thing. In football, I got me and a couple other people got severe concussions. Severe. We're talking like don't know where you are for a few days, Like you do some weird shit 2 months later and like it doesn't make sense. Like, oh yeah, I got my bell rung a month ago. No shit.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys couldn't tell, but it's still bothering him.
Yeah. No, but it's like a whole thing. Like if you get 3 concussions or whatever, you can't play sports anymore. So got a crazy concussion one time. Crazy, nuts. It was a Saturday morning football practice in JV. And I remember like, oh, we're gonna go get you checked out. We're gonna get you, we're gonna get you maybe a scan. We're gonna do this and this and this. We're gonna get you to the hospital. Blah blah blah. 10 minutes later, all right, guys, practice is over. Thank you. Have a nice day. They go back to the locker room. We go to our locker room. Okay, I'm waiting outside for coach. Looking at my.
That's another thing that I think is an important discussion to have is, with the NFL now and all this talk about safety and how the NFL threw all that stuff under the rug and whatnot.
Yeah.
You want to know what's probably way worse, though, is like Little League football and modified football. Yeah. Because, what protocols do they, at least all these NFL teams can afford to have on-staff medical professionals to go in and do, straight-up concussion protocols and examine people for that. But for kids and stuff like that, you're the middle school football coach, one, you're going to be like, I don't know if he has a concussion. He might just be...
Yeah, that was another thing is I always felt not...
Because I definitely feel like I got a couple concussions when I played modified. Because even then, they don't educate you that... I remember there was times where I was playing, people the person that was standing across from me that I was blocking or they were blocking me or whatever... there would be times where kids would intentionally try to hit each other helmet to helmet because they thought it was cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna knock this kid back.
Yeah.
Not realizing hey dude, your brain is gonna cause
for me. There were times where I would literally mysteriously get sick in school, and I remember one time I was in bio, and I had to stand up and go to the back of the room and lay down, and just so I didn't pass out in school. And like I said, shit like that seems so mysterious then, but it's it's probably because I literally got a crazy concussion 4 days before.
Yeah, and it's then too, it's you're not getting paid for any of this. You're probably not going to do anything with this down the road.
Yeah, I'm not getting paid for. Not only that, I'm miserable doing it. I don't want to go to practice.
Yeah,
fucking not getting any props. They don't even fucking play you if you fucking.
Yeah, and then 98% of the people doing it, if not higher than that, are never gonna do anything professionally with it anyway.
UE and my grade at least drove, I'd say, 40% of kids away from football before the season even started year to year.
Well, I know that for me, when I got from when I finished modified in 8th grade and I was going into high school, I was thinking about trying to do JV, and I was no, just because I heard people talking about it and the way that they were oh yeah. You guys are just gonna come here and get fucking destroyed. I was no thanks. I don't want to get destroyed and sit on the bench.
Dude, JV hit days, I'm telling you, JV hit days were the worst. Going home that whole drill where both guys start out on their back, they're about 10 yards apart, and then they get up and then you charge each other, and it's just one of the worst things. I can still feel it in my head, just the way when you have a helmet on and you rattle against somebody else and your whole brain fucking scrambles, and it's not fun. Even your teammates yourself. Walking up and going bang right across your helmet and just ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, dude.
Dinging you around. That's not fun.
Yeah. But yeah, man. I don't know. If I had a kid, if I had
a son, they ban heading.
If I had a son, I probably wouldn't let them play football.
They ban heading in soccer for kids in most leagues, for teenagers at least. because same concept. Fucking, I don't know how heavy a soccer was, but flying around
Yeah.
with all that force, dink, dink.
Yeah, as a kid, your brain,
Yeah,
your
that's not
skull
good.
might not. I don't know exactly the science behind all that, but yeah, man, I could definitely see that.
And we got to talk like that. All that shit leads to like low testosterone and like feeling like shit and just feeling off and imbalanced and fucking dizzy.
And then you have no idea why too if you're a kid, like
Yeah.
because you're not up on like, oh, NFL CTE, you know what I mean. You have no idea what any of this stuff is. You just know what your body's feeling.
And I mean, year after year, you see old NFL players, can barely walk,
killing
they're killing themselves, and and it's not funny. Funny is the wrong word. Don't you do that a lot? You say like, "Oh, it's funny," and like, like you laugh at like, but it's not funny.
Yeah.
But they're. I was gonna say it's funny, but again, ironic funny. These people are killing themselves and preserving their fucking brain so they can be studied. They're shooting themselves in the heart just so their brains can be studied after, so people don't have to. It's almost like a sacrificial suicide in a lot of these.
Junior Seau was a great example.
Yeah, like he didn't hurt anybody, right? He just
killed him.
He couldn't live with it.
Yeah, and I don't know if as far as whether or not he shot himself in the head or not, but no, that was I think the biggest spark.
I think heart.
I think you're right. But that was the biggest spark behind it, I think, was because after he died, because he was so high profile as an NFL player and NFL fan, you gotta know who fucking Junior Seau was.
Oh
but
my
then
God.
To have that happen, and he was only, like 44, 45? Like, he wasn't that old. I mean, might have been early 50s, man. But
I saw something the other day that I feel bad for saying this one, but it was a picture of Pat Tillman's uniform, and it said like, "This is Hall of Famer Pat Tillman's uniform." I think he's Hall of Famer. This Hall of Famer Pat Tillman's uniform, and I was like, I bet you that's not his uniform, because it was just like a pristine uniform.
Oh yeah.
That'd be the bad joke.
Yeah. I get it though. I mean, it is.
Gotta take that one back to the workshop.
Yeah, I probably should take that one back to the workshop. We'll edit that one out.
But yeah, man. I mean, head trauma is no joke, and I wonder what the next big thing in sports is going to be. I see a lot of kids, high school level. There's a lot of shoulder surgeries and knee surgeries. My cousin Gina blew her knee out when she was a senior. She runs like marathons and shit now, but she could barely walk for like a year after her surgery. She had to slowly recover, had her knee torn.
I think a lot of
this is just high school sports. High school sports for getting Tommy John surgeries on your, what is it, shoulder, arm, or whichever ligament, and then like torn ACLs, MCLs, all that shit. Like, Jesus,
it's because they're trying to like. I feel like now youth sports and they're more like. I don't know what the right word for it is, but like
recruiting camps for the pros.
Yeah, so it's like if you got like if you're a high school basketball coach and there's somebody that comes on your team as a freshman and like they're a beast and then that like you can have the best team and win state championships and then maybe parlay that into a collegiate coaching career and then whatever, then you're gonna like drive those people. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like you have kids now that are from like time that they're like 6 years old, 7 years old, almost being trained to become like professional athletes. So like the time that you're spending being 6 years old to 19 years old, all those landings, all those jumps, all those sprints, that's going to take more of a toll on you versus when you start if you're like 12, 13. And not as high intensity, so. But I don't know.
I think, I don't know what the answer is, but like surgeries are just so like,
they just got to become robots.
Yeah, and then it's almost worse, right? Like for baseball, like some people get the surgery voluntarily, just to have it because it improves your efficiency.
Life, probably.
Yeah, it's just.
Well, I mean that is pretty crazy too, to think that you would go to that end. But at the same time, I don't know. If you're a professional athlete, your window is only this, whatever.
Yeah. You
got so much money you can make, so you might as well get the bag while you can.
All right, well, I think that's it for this episode of Out of Endicott. Oh, no. We have one more thing.
All right, let's do it.
Oh, my God, I forgot it. I forgot. I'm sorry. And it's because I wrote it down. I had it on the bottom of my list. That was other piece of paper. So, what's the most cancerous thing you've seen all week? I'm gonna start by saying the most cancerous thing I've seen all week was the Nickelodeon Swag of the Year award went to Nikki Bella and some other guy. Just the fact that there's a Swag of the Year award on the Nickelodeon's like Kids Choice Awards, like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, what? How do you how do you constitute that? Like, I get it. I'm not saying like it's not a thing. I get it, you know. But like in 20 years, are you gonna be like talking? I won the Swag Award for the Nickelodeon's kid. Like, what?
That is
That is ridiculous.
pretty terrible. I have to say
That would be like having a sexy preteens award or something. It's like, what? Like, why? You can't do that. What the fuck are you doing? Fucking, who okayed that one at Nickelodeon? You know?
Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ.
That's pretty bad.
What's the most cancerous thing you've seen all week?
It's probably a tie between two things. Like, did you see that guy at the bagel shop or whatever that was talking about you're not my God, you're not my father, you're not my boss or whatever. He was freaking out about these girls. I don't know. You got to see that. That was pretty toxic. Like, pretty much he was like at some bagel shop waiting to get bagels, and like, I don't know, he thought that like this girl behind him was insulting him, and he basically was going off about how he gets insulted by women all the time, and he's like, I don't know. It was pretty bad. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. But then the other thing that was very cancerous to me was the Burger King taco. I haven't had it yet. I've just seen it, and you know, I love tacos, but really, Burger King, like, what are we doing?
I mean, you know,
I mean, they're $1, so I mean, while they're here, try them, I guess. But
that's how I feel about any stupid little promotion.
I don't know,
man.
man.
Like, sometimes they catch on. Though. I'm not saying
it's like Taco
Bell
being like, "Hey, we're gonna do a burger." I don't know.
But
I would probably try it.
You know,
I guess I can.
For everyone like this, there's a success.
There is.
They got.
Well, I would say that their success before was the Whopperito. That did okay. Like, and they took that away, so like that actually kind of makes sense. Versus the Burger King crunchy shell taco.
But yeah, stuff like that. I mean, very, very gimmicky.
Or like, I don't know how you feel about that KFC Cheetos mayonnaise and chicken sandwich.
Yeah, Cheetos on a sandwich doesn't sound that great to me. Yeah, it doesn't sound that amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I get the idea. I get what they're trying to do, but I don't know. Those are probably up there for my toxic things of the week, cancerous things of the week.
The Swag Award.
The Swag Award's pretty
Swag
bad.
of the Year.
That's pretty terrible.
Yeah. But all right, yeah. Thanks for listening. That's our episode of Out of Endicott. And we're going to try to, upgrade the set a little bit. We're going to maybe get a couple new cameras. Yeah, we only have one camera now.
Get some multi-camera
angles. And I want to go and just record random shit with my camera. I want to go record sunsets, fireworks, fucking just nature, fucking go to local businesses and do, news stories, stuff like that. Just explore.
So keep an eye out, folks.
Yeah.
There's a lot happening. There's a lot coming.
Thank you for watching and listening. Until next time. Oh, and I think I'm going to put our podcast on Anchor FM. It's a new podcasting network, but it's free. That's just going to be the audio, not the video stream. But I used to upload them to SoundCloud and stuff like that. But the servers are just so small, and you can only upload a few episodes for free. So I'm thinking about putting it there so everyone can access it, so you can listen to it on the way to work and all that shit. So, yep. All right, now for real this time. Until next time, thank you for listening. Peace.